OTT, Advertisers' Newfound Love. For this, please welcome Karan Bedi, CEO, MX Player.
Great. Thank you for having me here. I wanted a quick presentation that I wanted to put up very last minute. So, do I have the right to share my screen? Can I do that? So I'm going to be talking a little bit about our business, which is the OTT business, and obviously from the perspective of MX. So just to very quickly start off with the market today. I mean, I think this is some stuff that you guys know already, but I think it's worth it to just go through a little bit of the serious sort of numbers that are out here. You currently look at in India no less than probably 500 million people who are genuine consumers online, consumers of content online. Whereas the other interesting thing that has actually happened is because India is a country of a very large population and lower sort of incomes, you have a lot of time spent. So you have, the time spent on apps in general on smartphones is very high, higher than any other country, I think. But also within that, if you look at it, the number of people, the amount of time spent within the content ecosystem is also as a proportion very, very high. So I think that just to give the sense of the fact that the market is absolutely huge. The other thing about this is that while today we continue to talk about television as a market with 900 million consumers, the reality is that that has continued to be based off a 200 million TV sets multiplied by 4.5 people per family kind of or per set kind of metric. Whereas in online, you're certainly seeing individually addressable populations of these numbers. Um, the Obviously the other interesting thing about this is that India and this is the right forum to state, in India is a highly sort of under monetized market, very 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 low AdX as a percentage of GDP market. So I think that has also been a concern in India for many years. I think that almost everybody on this conference would have had some degree of stress about how ARPUs are low and things like that. But that is currently, as you can see, compared to most developed economies, obviously we are far away. But even from a China perspective, we are probably about only half as in terms of a percentage of overall GDP ad spends. But that also means the flip side of that is obviously massive amount of growth. And this is how I think, this is how we think this is actually going to play out. So if you see in India today, you probably got, about 27% of the market that's on digital today. You have, and this has changed obviously quite a bit in the last year, right? I think everyone has seen how COVID has impacted this. So I think what you're seeing out here is that if you look at both the other two very large sort of markets, which is sort of China and the US, you are seeing that in the US, which is obviously a big traditional media market, right? Lots of print, lots of television, etc., etc. But you've seen that even there, the bulk of the market is now digital. Whereas in China, obviously, traditional media was comparatively lower. But I think the very interesting thing to see that is that you've seen these new products actually come through and really expand that market. So just to give you an example of one of the businesses we're in, which is short video in India, you see the China numbers on short video. Short video didn't exist in 2017, 2018. And, this year is likely to be a $30 billion ad business. So the one very interesting thing that, new products allow you to do in the digital space when you innovate quickly is that these markets can just show up out of nowhere. Literally, short video in China has been a $30 billion market that has been created out of nothing in 3 years, 3 or 4 years. And if you look at the US, while that hasn't specifically been called out here, you have a very similar emerging market that has popped up that has been driven by those cycles of innovation, right? You had Instagram push a certain kind of cycle. You have now TikTok pushing a certain kind of cycle in the US, and I think that you're going to see that happen in India in many ways, not just in expanding the market in dollar terms, but also innovation and products that are going to start coming up. We obviously this is something we believe. We think that on OTT specifically, the the sort of big meal and the daily snacks are starting to converge. We think that we've seen a lot of obviously over the last few months, we've been scaling up our short video platform Takatak on an already large user base on MX Player. So the one thing we've seen is that it's not just people have need states during the day. It's not as if they've when you want someone to watch long form video, you're going to have to actually see them take out maybe 30, 40, 50 minutes, 60 minutes of their time to actually spend and watch 1 or 2 episodes or maybe 2 hours to watch a movie. Whereas on short form, you have chunks of 5 to 10 minutes where people come, and I think a lot of you probably do that, hopefully on Takatak. But I think there's a very large opportunity for advertisers to understand that users are now present across these need states across a day, and you can actually target them in a manner that is trackable across. I mean, obviously in our case, it's all one backend, so you can actually do lots of interesting things. But from a general industry perspective, not to plug too much, I think in general you're seeing a lot of our people coming back and saying, "Hey, listen, we want to track users across a different set of cohorts and deal with them across our across their need states in a day." Just to reiterate that point, I think this innovation in products and formats is going to be one of the biggest drivers of moving this money much more quickly than I think a lot of people had anticipated. Just to give you a sense of where we think this goes, possibly $10 million in ad markets for OTT, short video, gaming, music over the next. We haven't really talked about gaming too much during this presentation, but it is all of the. I think the point here is that all of these things are beginning to converge. So I think there's a lot of potential where users and advertisers and platforms can get together to understand how to completely leverage this convergence that's happening on different formats on digital. This is a very important point as to why we think something has moved. If you look at this, and this is again on the right side here, you've got basically watch time that we've broken out, but actually this is representative of the market in India. You had television cater to only a very specific part of what was happening as an audience in this country. Single TV households, as I mentioned earlier, there are only 197 million TVs in India. So there are already about 2.5 times that many phones in India. So there's a very, very different scale of access, targeting, segmentation that is possible here that just wasn't possible on TV. And actually, if you look at the content, in India, effectively, this is the content on television and OTT in India is very, very different. Whereas in the West, you actually had a lot of overlap in terms of what content was available on OTT and what was available on sort of what we call premium television. Obviously, we think that going forward, just the sheer opportunity to cater to many of these audiences that are coming on, and again, I reiterate, 500 million individuals already, possibly going up to 7, 8, 900 million in the next few years. It's a huge amount of potential audience to cater to that TV is not really catering to yet. And then obviously this is just the way we look at it. We think that there's obviously a lot of people out there, and we think that we have taken a view that AVoD is going to be the driving factor in this market over time. You've actually seen a few of the other players who are SVOD only who are starting to move to this direction already. The other thing I really want to talk about, I know I'm running out of time, but I think there's two very small points I want to touch upon. That as we think about advertising and as we think about dealing with all of us think about dealing with our clients and many of the clients who sit here, I think there is an opportunity to go beyond just showing ads. And I think one of the interesting things we are thinking about is uh, what we call loyalty loops. So the one very the easiest example of this has been for example airline or hotel miles programs. But what if you can actually, we've done experiments where we are actually looking at engagement loops and actually connecting those to transactions on many of our customers. So just to give you a very quick example of how this has worked, um, we've had a partnership with a leading sort of food delivery company that we did recently, and where we provided for customers that were engaged on watching and playing and whatever on MX, we provided coupons from the company to redeem. And actually, we drove a huge amount of traffic, massive conversions, and 64% of these redemptions on the partners brand on the website were actually new users. So I think there is now, because digital is so targetable, addressable, we can actually deliver right down to the final funnel what a brand or a customer will want. So I think it's not just about putting a brand out there, but actually linking that and saying, hey, listen, how do we talk about brand? How do we talk about conversions? How do we talk about actual revenue and ROI for those brands? And very last, just to sort of you know just to present, it's all been a rosy picture. Just to present a very little bit, it's surprising for this to come up in a ad fraud or an ad conference, because typically piracy is associated with paid content, but we get pirated as well. And actually, if you think about this, we've seen that there are now apps that are out there. It still continues to be a huge threat. There are actually apps out there that are designed simply to enable piracy. And I think what happens with those is that you actually have these brands that or these apps that actually go there, make it super easy for you to download. And we've done this research with our customers, right, saying that, listen, why would you go out and pirate content when you're watching it for free anyway? And it's and one of the reasons is that it's just so easily available that customers are tempted to do it. So I think even from an ad perspective, to talk about these billions of dollars that we may be able to generate as an industry, I think this is something to continue to watch out for. Obviously, this is a huge problem for the escort business, probably a bigger problem than ours, but it's something that we definitely need to look at between various different kinds of apps, Telegram, Plate, etc., that do this. So that's all for me. Lots of opportunity and some degree of stuff to watch out for.